However, there's another good one that doesn't even contain a leg day, and that is the full body split. The full body split gets a bad rap from people like gym bros who like the bro split because they think it's more targeted and allows for more overload, and they think that the full body split isn't targeted enough to allow for each muscle to get overloaded enough. It doesn't allow for enough rest periods for each muscle. However, I'm going to dispel those arguments, but first let's talk about how the muscles are grouped together anatomically. The full body split is the best split when it comes to this aspect because your full body is meant to work together in most functional movements that you would be making in the world, and thus a lot of functional movements that you will make in your training. All right, so for instance, we've been over this before when I talked about movement. If you are punching, you are using your whole kinetic chain from your bottom of your foot all the way up through your fist. There's energy traveling through there, and every one of the body parts involved is working together. And even if you're not a fighter, don't play certain sports like that, even just the act of picking something up works the whole posterior chain. All right, so the full body split is the first split to solve the issue of the posterior chain and deadlifting and doing other exercises for that chain. The full body split gives you the ability to train the full posterior chain together as it is supposed to be trained. And you can do deadlift or any other posterior chain work on any day of the week when you're doing a full body split. And it is not a controversial or complicated issue. And you'll find that because the full body is meant to work together, that if you're training for health or weight loss or athleticism and any kind of sports, that doing a full body split is optimal for you because it's going to really free up your training and give you the ability to do all sorts of awesome things, from aerobics routines to full body calisthenics sports training. So anatomically, this is certainly a pro. In fact, it is the most optimal split anatomically speaking because of the fact that it is grouping together the largest set of muscle groups of any of them, in that it groups together all muscle groups. And there is so many benefits to training the entire body as one, as it is naturally meant to. Now, when it comes to the frequency implications and the rest periods per muscle, you have even more freedom with the full body split to do training any number of times during the week. So you could simply train your full body twice per week, or you could be coming to the gym almost every single day and do a 5 or 6 day training week where every single muscle group is getting trained a little bit every single day. I know what some of you out there are thinking, isn't this too little rest between sessions? Well, no, not if you are using the right volume and load, okay? If you're only doing a little bit per day, you can train every day. In fact, that's what the most athletic people in the world do, all right? Professional athletes do it. People who are in the military do it. Your gym coaches in high school and college probably do it. It works because it is not about overloading every muscle group with so much volume in each session. It's about spreading it out through the week so that you can recover. And this is good because it's easier on you, and it also trains your body to be able to recover more rapidly and train more frequently, which is good health and athletic conditioning to have, because you shouldn't only have the energy and strength to work out twice per week. You should be able to perform more consistently than that, especially if you are a professional athlete, or especially if you have body composition goals. Higher frequency is better. And you'll find that there's really no limit to that, okay? The more frequently you are training each muscle, the more adaptations it is going to make and the more conditioning and gains you are going to get. Now, let's talk about loading. If you are doing this at a high frequency, which is an optimal frequency, you wouldn't be doing a lot of heavy loading. You could be doing a little bit of very low volume heavy loading here and there throughout your high frequency full body training week. However, this split does give you the freedom to do a lower frequency if you do want to do heavier loading. So this split is optimal for any loading scheme. However, I would say what it is most optimal for is not doing heavy loads, but rather doing higher frequencies and higher volumes. So let's move on to the volume implications. The volume implications are even more significant for this split because the split gives you the ability to do an extremely high volume that will then get spread out over the course of the week into very low per session volume that is very manageable and something that you can recover from within 24 hours. So the split is extremely ideal for volume allocation. And to demonstrate this, I want you to think of what would be an extremely high volume for you. And if you're an intermediate athlete, this number would be like 15 or 20 sets. If you are an advanced athlete, this number would be 25 or 30 sets. And imagine trying to do all of that volume for each muscle group in just 1 or 2 training sessions for each muscle group per week. All right, that would be very difficult. But now imagine doing just a few sets for every muscle group every day of the week for 5 or 6 days. You could easily spread out 15 sets or 20 sets per muscle by doing 3 or 4 sets per muscle every single day. So 3 pushes and pulls and legs and shoulders and arms per day over the course of a 5-day week would be 15 sets. Something that you couldn't do in one session, maybe 2, but still even then, spread over the course of 5 days, it becomes a very manageable per session volume. You could even do 20 sets in 1 week by doing 4 sets per day. So this split is highly ideal for high volume training because of your ability to allocate the volume over so many sessions. And if you're an advanced athlete and can train with really high frequency and can recover in 24 hours from 5 sets per muscle, you could do 5 sets per muscle, and over the course of 6 days, you'd have accomplished 30 whole sets in a manageable per session volume. So when it comes to the volume implications, this split is very optimal. But the benefits for this one don't stop there at the normal aspects of training. It goes way beyond that. For one, there's no leg day, which I see as a really big pro and is something that I love about this. When I'm doing this, I never have to dread doing a lot of leg work in one session. I only have to do a little bit every time, so it makes it so much more manageable. Also, if you like the push-pull leg split because you like the idea of training grouped by movement patterns, you can still do that with a full body split. You can program your training week to have different themed days where you are training using different movement patterns or different pieces of equipment or exercise styles or whatever you want. And that's a huge benefit for me. And you'll find that this type of split when it comes to programming is so simple that it can actually be more complex than anything else. And that is because it is the easiest to program even when you are getting more advanced and complicated with it. So the fact that you're not getting complicated by all these different various muscle groupings and you're just training the full body every time you train, that simplicity gives you the ability to then get creative with how you program different types of themed or styled workouts. And it'll be easy to be creative and tactical and methodical and systematic even when you are getting advanced and it's getting complex. All right, so you could have one day that is for heavy strength training, another day that's for barbell and dumbbell training, another day that's for cable training, another day that's for calisthenics and plyometrics and cardio. You can have days in there that are for different other styles of training, different sports training. There's just so many possibilities when it comes to how to program this and the ease in which you can create complex weekly programs or microcycles, as you're going to learn when I teach you periodization, makes it actually really fun to program. You'll find that this type of split is really the most unlimited split. It gives you the most freedom and you can basically do anything you want with it. But perhaps most of all, and the one factor that may be what can make this the most optimal split, is that this is one of the only splits where you can train the same muscle more than 3 times per week. And that greater frequency really is key, okay? Because consistency is key to making adaptations and conditioning and hypertrophy and strength gains. All right, whatever it is you are trying to do, those adaptations and that conditioning requires a high level of consistency over time. All right, so the more frequency and consistency you have, the more rapid your results will be and the shorter time it will take you to make progress. So just imagine the amount of rapid progress and growth and strength you would get when you are training every muscle group 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 times per week as compared to training them only 2 or 3 times per week. Okay, 2 or 3 times per week is still optimal. All right, 1 time per week is suboptimal. What you need for growth is at least 2 or 3 times per week. So while 2 to 3 times per week is in the beginning of the optimal frequency range and you will see good hypertrophy and growth from that, imagine how much more growth you'd see if you were training at twice that frequency, especially when considering that more frequency means more volume. And spreading out your volume also leads to another pro for this one, which is that higher frequency of full body workouts. And that volume getting spread out throughout the week leaves you feeling better. All right, it is healthier for your body. It's better for you. It leaves you feeling better in your body with less aches and pains because it's causing less inflammation and stress and strain on your joints and connective tissue and such. And since you're not overloading too much per session, you are causing less fatigue per session and you're managing your energies better. So you're going to get less aches and pains, less fatigue, and so you're going to be healthier and feel better. So this is the split that I think you'll find feels the best for you. At least that's what I have found. And that's because, again, it's most natural. You got all your kinetic chains working together. It helps you to use your energies best and your time as well. It's very time efficient. So there are just countless pros for this split, and I love it. It is my favorite, and I think that when you start using it and really seeing its potential, that you will as well. Now, when it comes to why some people may not want to do this split and what cons they might see with it. Some people would say that it's too broad in general and that you're not training specific enough body parts and movement patterns together so that you're not overloading any one muscle enough on any one day. And what I would say to that is, if you are training your muscles to be able to do a lot of work in one session, so doing high volume per session to be able to work on the per session work capacity for each muscle group, you certainly could choose other splits. However, you could still do that with this split by doing more work for certain muscle groups on certain days and just doing maintenance work for other muscle groups on those days, right? And then focusing more on others on other days. It doesn't have to be an even full body split every single day, okay? You can allocate your volume however you want throughout different muscle groups. So you can have a day where you're working more on certain movement patterns like bench press and other pushing, and another day where you're working more on pulling and other back exercises, and another day where you're doing squatting and deadlifting and such, and another day where you're doing a lot of arms and shoulders, and another day where you're doing any other accessory work you want to do. You can program and theme your days and allocate your exercises and manipulate those training variables however you want with this, okay? You have the freedom to do that. So you can use whatever loading and volume and frequency schemes you want to with this. So that's really not the issue if you have the knowledge and ability to manipulate those training variables. Now, when it comes to high frequency and high volume here, there is another controversial issue here that training at high frequency and volume is not sustainable over long periods of time. So when you are thinking of this split in terms of high frequency and high volume, then yes, that is not something you can do consistently and sustainably over a long period of time. That's something you'll only be able to do for a month or two or a meso or two in a periodized fashion. But all in all, I would say that this split really doesn't have any real cons that cannot be solved by proper programming, and that it only has pros, and a lot of them, and a lot of different aspects, again, working together cooperatively here for great synergy and the freedom to use it creatively in almost an unlimited number of ways. So it's my professional opinion as well as my personal experience that this split is the most optimal. And when it comes to my personal experience, I've been able to use this split in so many amazing ways throughout the years. I programmed it in innumerable different ways, manipulated the different training variables in so many different ways, used it to train with so many different styles and techniques, and systematized it and periodized it in different ways. And I found that when it comes to programming and working with splits, this is the best one to work with for just about any training purpose. And it's something I highly recommend you use most of the time. But again, it doesn't come without its trade-offs and is not the be-all, end-all of all splits. Okay, it's probably not going to be perfect for you 100% of the time, and depending on what you're training for and your schedule and life, etc., there may be other times that you might want to use other training splits as well. So this is really going to end up being about periodization and scheduling different splits at different times, but most of the time you'll probably want to be using full body. It really is the best all-purpose training split, even though it's not the be-all, end-all of them.